Hi, and thank you for stopping by Heartfelt Crochets by Darlene. I'm Darlene, and if this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. Today, I am going to share with you 7 crochet hacks that I find helpful in my crochet world. And I think that you might find them helpful in your crochet world as well. So let's go ahead and I'll share them. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with my 7 favorite crochet hacks. The first one is when you end up creating a ball of yarn out of leftover yarn that you have from a skein. Now, normally you would end up hiding the initial end and you would feed off the top of the ball. Now, the problem with this, though, is the ball is going to be rolling all over the place and sometimes on the floor, and it's just a pain in the butt. So the alternative way that I find to be so much better is feeding it out the center like you would most regular worsted skeins of yarn. Now, in order to do this, you would just simply start rolling your yarn as you would into a ball, just like you would normally do, only leave a tail out. And then you would start your ball. Be sure that when you change your direction in wrapping, that you're not getting this center piece caught up. You're always leaving that open. Then you would tuck in your end. And you would feed out from the center. Now I have this ball of yarn that I've already created, and you can see how simply it just pulls out smoothly, and your ball isn't going to flop around everywhere. Now, while we have this particular ball of yarn out, I want to go into hack number 2 to give it a little bit of extra security so it's not flopping all around while you're doing your work. Just grab a bowl, one of these little handy office supplies. It's a binder clip. Clip it to the edge of your bowl. Place your ball of yarn in the bowl. Feed your yarn through. Would be kind of like up against your lap. And you would just pull the yarn to do your work. And that ball of yarn isn't going anywhere. Hack number 3. You love the color yarn that you have in just a regular medium weight yarn, and you really wish that you could find that color in bulky, but you just can't find it. There is a way to turn this into a nice bulky yarn that you are wishing for. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to make sure that we pulled out a lot of yarn from that skein, and we are going to lay it down and create an S. We're going to grab the end of that yarn and we are going to make a slip knot. You would grab a heavier crochet hook because it's a thicker, bulkier yarn. I'm going to be using 6.5 millimeter today, nice thick hook. And we would make our chain. Then when you got to the end, you would simply feed the working yarn from the skein through the loop and make a new loop and continue working your project with those 3 pieces of yarn. Now we'll go ahead and we'll start a row of double crochets. And see, we got to the end again. So we simply would just feed that yarn through and create a new loop. And you would just continue on with your work from there. And there you would have your bulky yarn. Hack number 4. You just started a new project following a pattern and you're working in rounds. The pattern tells you to use a stitch marker so that you don't end up losing your place when you're making your third round. You don't have a stitch marker. What are you going to do? Do you have a bobby pin? A bobby pin would work just fine. You would go ahead and create your first stitch. Simply insert the bobby pin. Make sure it has those little plastic nubs on the tips so that it doesn't catch onto your yarn. And it makes a beautiful stitch marker. It's not going anywhere. Another alternative that you can do is you would take a piece of yarn, and before you made that first stitch, you would simply drape your piece of yarn over your work. Hold that piece of yarn in place with your thumb and your middle finger, or however it is that you hold your yarn. And you would continue crocheting your next round. And that yarn, if it's long enough, it's not going to go anywhere. If you want to go a little bit further, you can simply just tie it off a little bit, and it's really easy to just grab and pull out when you're finished. Tip number 5, we are going to use the same work, and let's just pretend that we have worked quite a bit and we don't want to have our work unravel. Yeah, sure. You can go ahead and just pull up a big loop. That's fine. Throw it in your bag. Chances are it's going to be fine and it's not going to go anywhere. But if you should have other projects in that bag and you grab it out and it snags this yarn, it's going to pull and it's going to pull out your work. Or if you have children that like getting into things, they're going to fumble around and they're going to pull and it'll pull out your work. An easy alternative to making a really big loop is to simply take that bobby pin that I just showed you as a stitch marker and place it on the end. Or if you do have an actual stitch marker, hook that on the end. It's nice and secure now. It's not going anywhere. It's safe. Moving right on to our next tip, which is tip number 6. Again, you have this really beautiful project that you just started to crochet. And you decided that you needed to make something else with the same crochet hook. So you put this project aside, and then later on, when you go to pick this work back up, you can't remember what size crochet hook that you used. A simple solution is, before you put that work away and begin another project with that same hook, take a picture of that project in that hook together. Make sure that the size of the hook is showing. Take your phone and take a quick picture. Then later on, when you pick up that project, look at the picture and you're all set to go. You know exactly which hook you need. And last but not least is tip number 7. So you have this skein of yarn. It's the only color that you have of this particular color. Well, sometimes you're not going to have enough and you're going to want to match this color perfectly, and you're not going to remember what color it is because you took off the sleeve and you threw it away. I've done that many times and went, oh, why did I throw that away? Instead, go ahead and remove the sleeve. Cut a piece of that yarn. And cut the label of that yarn. Now this label isn't showing me that it is Red Heart yarn, so I'm simply just going to write Red Heart on the label. Then I'm going to bend it and just give it a little bit of a cut. Just enough to give it a little slit. Feed that yarn through. Tie a little knot. And throw it into my bin of all of my little strands of yarn. So if I need that color. I hope you found my 7 crochet hacks helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And subscribe to my channel because you never know what else I'm going to end up posting. And thanks so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day. Bye.